An 11th hour surprise in the Clarence Thomas case. On the eve of what promises to be one of the nastiest hearings ever on Capitol Hill, a mystery witness is subpoenaed to provide potentially damaging testimony against the Supreme Court nominee. And new attacks on Thomas's credibility compound Anita Hill's accusation of sexual harassment.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ed Koppel.
Until late today, it seemed that tomorrow's Senate hearings on Judge Clarence Thomas would focus almost exclusively on charges of sexual harassment against Thomas by law professor Anita Hill. Now, according to the North Carolina newspaper, the Charlotte Observer, one of its own employees, Angela Wright, has some charges of her own to level. Ms. Wright, who now works as an assistant editor for the Charlotte Observer, used to work for Clarence Thomas as a press secretary at the EEOC. She reportedly told Senate investigators today that Thomas pressured her for dates, asked her breast size, and showed up at her apartment uninvited. Ms. Wright is further quoted by her own newspaper as saying, "I'm not stating a claim of sexual harassment against Clarence Thomas. It's not something that intimidated or frightened me. At the most, it was annoying and obnoxious." Ms. Wright will testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee either tomorrow or Saturday. She says that she has never met Anita Hill, but sympathized with her. "I feel in my gut that she's telling the truth," Ms. Wright is quoted as saying. "I know enough about the man to know he's quite capable of doing what she said he did." My colleague Jeff Greenfield joins us now. Both the White House, Jeff, and Senate Republicans are already firing back, right?
That is right, Ted. Even before Angela Wright surfaced in Washington, the White House was complaining that the Senate Judiciary Committee had failed to follow the normal practice of ordering up an FBI investigation before bringing the witness to testify. And Thomas's supporters on Capitol Hill were firing up some very heavy artillery, challenging her claim that she was fired back in 1985 because she wasn't aggressive enough in firing veteran EEOC employees. Wyoming Republican Alan Simpson tonight told reporters, quote, "We know she was twice dismissed from other jobs for indicating sexual harassment," unquote. He said also that we know that Clarence Thomas, and I quote, "fired her for some very uncomplimentary statements about another group in society," unquote. The senator did not indicate what group, ethnic or otherwise, Ms. Wright had allegedly insulted. And Senator Simpson did not suggest how his account squared with what Clarence Thomas said when the Charlotte Observer called him back in January of 1990 for a reference for Angela Wright. Thomas told the paper she had resigned, and he called her an excellent employee and said that she worked very well under stress. Two of Thomas's supporters back at the commission, however, said that Ms. Wright had been dismissed because she was grossly incompetent. Another Judiciary Committee Republican, Orrin Hatch, who will cross-examine Ms. Wright at the hearing tomorrow, is quoted in a Knight Ridder Wire story as saying, quote, "That person is going to have her ass handed to her from what I've heard," unquote. All of these late-breaking charges and countercharges simply add to a dizzying sense of drama that always grips Washington when a story like this one takes over the town. At times it seems a blend of drama and tragedy and farce. In the room where Senator Joseph McCarthy met his political end, where the Watergate hearings marked the beginning of the end for Richard Nixon, they were setting the stage tonight.
Come on, move it out.
They had already welcomed one of the principals to Washington Wednesday night for her testimony that would make or break the public life of the other. He received yesterday Washington's semi-official seal of confidence, the White House photo opportunity. At times like these, there is in Washington almost a giddy sense of anticipation about the impending drama. It's like the flash of lightning in the summer sky just before a big storm. And all around town, it's all anyone's talking about.
Oh, yes. It's much more fun than talking about national health insurance. And people go on with it as long as they can.
But for all the rush of excess energy, what will happen tomorrow is not a circus. It is about whether Clarence Thomas will sit on the United States Supreme Court. And that question is likely to turn on how the Senate resolves some very sharp, clear differences between Anita Hill's charges and Clarence Thomas's answers. Unlike the original hearings, the full Judiciary Committee will not question the witnesses tomorrow. Committee Chairman Joe Biden, Pat Leahy, and Howell Heflin will question for the Democrats. Arlen Specter and Orrin Hatch will question for the Republicans.
I'm not trying to win a case for Professor Hill or win a case for Judge Thomas or vice versa. I want to be able to present as good a case as possible for the rest of the Senate and say, here's the truth. Now you make up your mind whether you're going to vote for him or against him.
In all honesty, what we want to do is get to the facts, find out what really we can about it to the extent we can. I suspect in the end it will still be one person's word against another.
But what questions will the hearings try to answer? Question: what actually happened between Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill? Anita Hill says that Thomas frequently asked her out on dates when she worked for him in Washington, that after she refused, he talked to her graphically about pornography and sexual advances. Thomas says their conduct was totally professional. There is some conflict here. He reportedly told the FBI he did ask her out, and reportedly told Republican senators he never did. To strengthen Thomas's credibility on this key issue, Senator John Danforth, his key Senate supporter, hosted a press conference today at which 18 women who worked with Thomas defended him in the strongest terms, including one victim of sexual harassment.
There was no one who exhibited more compassion, more outrage, more sensitivity, more caring to what was happening than Clarence Thomas.
Not one time has he ever said anything demeaning about women. Not one time has he ever said anything that would connote sexual harassment. Not one time did he ever treat women other than his equals.
I saw his outrage when he had even a whiff of impropriety on the part of any of the men in our agency. And I know the action he took. And frankly, I know the stronger actions he would have taken if castration were legal.
Question: why did Anita Hill wait so long to complain? Thomas's supporters are likely to continue raising a point they have been bringing up all week, that these charges emerged on the very weekend before the scheduled Senate vote on confirmation.
She never came forth at the Department of Education and made a complaint or said anything to anybody. She didn't come forth in the first confirmation to the EEOC, but came with him and worked at the EEOC. Does that sound like somebody who's been sexually harassed?
But two of tomorrow's witnesses will testify that these are not last-minute charges concocted to derail Thomas's nomination. One of the witnesses is Joel Paul of American University Law School.
I'm absolutely convinced that she's telling the truth. In the summer of 1987, when she was here as a researcher, she told me then the story that she had left the EEOC because she'd been subject to sexual harassment by her supervisor.
Moreover, Anita Hill did not volunteer this information. She was called by staff members of two committee members, and only then did she call the Judiciary Committee. Republicans are likely to suggest that she was out to present damaging information about Clarence Thomas while remaining anonymous. Democrats are likely to suggest that her motives were anything but political. Question: did Anita Hill remain friendly with Thomas? Thomas's supporters have said that Anita Hill's claims of harassment are hard to believe, given her continued friendly dealings with Thomas. For instance, Charles Kotha, who was dean at Oral Roberts Law School, where Hill began her teaching career, says that Thomas helped get her the job and that relations between the two were always cordial.
As a matter of fact, just a couple years ago, Anita and I were on a seminar for some personnel group here, and we got our material from Clarence Thomas, and there was never anything said at that time that would even hint that there was something about the relationship between the two of them that was anything but above board.
No single piece of evidence is likely to be more discussed and debated than the phone logs of Clarence Thomas. They purport to show that Anita Hill called Thomas over a 7-year period with requests for help and with friendly messages. Hill has called the logs garbage. She says she was only returning Clarence Thomas's calls. Today, Nightline talked with the White House, with the Office of Senator Danforth, and with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. No one could explain who brought these logs to public attention or whether outgoing calls were logged, nor could they provide any details about where the logs were kept or how they were kept. As of this hour, the Senate Judiciary Committee still has not released a final list of witnesses and will not do so tonight. Sources have told ABC News that an attempt will be made to hear the key witnesses, Judge Thomas, Professor Hill, and maybe Angela Wright, tomorrow. And Democrats and Republicans are still talking about what other witnesses might be called and in what order. Ted?
Jeff, thank you very much. Given the extraordinary nature of the quote attributed by night-reader newspapers to Senator Hatch, We have him on the phone now at his home in Virginia. Can you hear me, Senator Hatch?
Sure can.
You want to respond to that quote?
Well, I'm surprised you used it, Ted, because I told you that I didn't say something like that. I would not have used that kind of language. I think I said that, you know, she's in trouble because having looked at what was discussed with her and having looked at the prior record, some of the other quotes by some of the other senators were right. And, you know, I think she's going to be it's going to be very difficult for her, you know, to make this case against Judge Thomas. I predicted that the minute we went into this mode that there are going to be people come out of the woodwork, the same sleaze artists are going to be pushing to get people like that out, and frankly, this is what's happening. I'm surprised we've only had one.
Well, let me just ask you, Senator, and I promised you this would be a very short conversation. I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to that quote.
We called by the way, we called Knight Ritter, and the fellow who interviewed me said that he didn't recall me saying that, and then I think they said there was another one standing out of the, staked out at the door of Senator Thurman's office, and neither my press agent or myself or my judiciary staff remembered me saying anything like that. In fact, that's not characteristic of me. I don't use that kind of language, and certainly not in an interview with the press.
Now, let me just focus, however, on what you have said this evening, namely that she is in trouble. Had you heard all of the quotes that are contained in that Charlotte Observer story? Had you heard that he showed up and invited at her home? Had you heard some of the things that he said to her? And she is quoted several times in the story, and I didn't mention at the top, as saying he never asked her for a date. He would say things like that, "You will be going out with me," and apparently said that repeatedly.
Well, let me say this. The interviews with her, as far as I know, were still going on when I left down there around 10 o'clock. So I think it's premature to say exactly what her charges are going to be. But to be honest with you, we expect this type of stuff. This is the circus right now.
Well, if it's premature,
he's been badly treated. It's been very unfair to him, and I have to say, I believe it's been very unfair to Professor Hill as well, because, you know, Professor Hill asked for confidentiality, and she didn't ask for this to be made public. She wanted us to know about her feelings on this matter, and the committee had basically decided that a 10-year-old charge with some of the facts and holes that were in it, that we would have to go with the judge and that we should honor her confidentiality. It was only because of a sleazy act by somebody on the committee or their staffs that waited until everybody was home and then released this right before the vote was to take place, that now both Clarence Thomas and Professor Hill are never going to come out of this hole. They're both going to be damaged and hurt.
One more quick question. If you think it's premature to be focusing on the comments of this woman who is coming up from Charlotte, North Carolina, isn't it premature for you to say she's in trouble?
Well, based upon what I did hear, I think she's in trouble. I think this woman, you know, I don't want to go into the details because I think I ought to wait till all of them out. But I heard a considerable number of details. I heard about her work record. I heard about some of the things that she has said in the past. And frankly, I think she's in trouble. I think that maybe I'll be proven wrong, but from what I heard, I think she's going to be in trouble if she comes in there and starts to say these things about Clarence Thomas.
All right. Senator Hatch, it's very good of you to join us by phone, and we'll be watching with interest tomorrow as the hearings take place. Thank you again, sir. When we come back, we'll be joined by Newsday reporter Timothy Phelps, who tonight is breaking another potentially damaging story about Clarence Thomas, this one concerning Thomas's financial background. And we'll be joined by David Gergen, former White House communications director, who says that what should have been a dignified hearing in the Senate is now becoming the battle of the sexes.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by United Parcel Service.
You could call one company to take your package to an address across town. And you could find somebody to take your package to any address cross-country. Then you could call a third outfit that could take your package overseas. And and yet another that could take your package overnight. But there's only one company you could call if you only wanted to make one call.
I'm the youngest guy in the office. I've been there the shortest time, yet I'm the only one who got an Eagle Talon for a company car.
Wow, the boss must think a lot of you.
Dad? Yeah.
That's my girl. She's extremely pleased with me for getting this newly designed Eagle Talon.
She's beautiful.
We think so.
Saturday, 9 a.m. until 9 p.m. at Smith's Home Furnishing. Everything is on sale. Every furniture item, every appliance, every electronic item, every mattress, every computer. Yes, every single item in Smith's tremendous inventory is on sale Saturday. Plus, no down payment, no monthly payments, and no interest for 6 months. That's no cash out of your pocket until April of 1992. So remember, whatever you want for your home, you'll save on. Because everything is on sale Saturday, 9 to 9 at Smith's Home Furnishings. You decide at Bill Yoder Jeep Eagle Custom Vans.
I'm Bill Yoder, and I'm out to prove for price, quality, and service, there's no better deal than a Yoder deal. You decide.
That's right. You decide. Bill Yoder will post dead cost on the window of every new Jeep and Eagle in stock. Dead cost means invoice price is less all rebates and dealer incentives. Then you decide how much profit to pay for a Jeep or Eagle. Now through Sunday at Bill Yoder Jeep Eagle Custom Vans.
Where there's no better deal than a Yoder deal.
Finally, someone finds out who Dan Quayle really is.
Anything you'd like to say to Jay Leno or Johnny Carson?
Watch 2020 Friday.
Joining us from our Washington studios are Timothy Phelps, a reporter for Newsday, who was one of 2 journalists to break the story about Clarence Thomas and Anita Hill. Tonight, he has uncovered more potentially damaging information about Mr. Thomas. And David Gergen, the editor-at-large for U.S. News and World Report. Tim, let's begin with the news story. This has to do with tax evasion, or?
Well, I wouldn't say tax evasion, Ted. On 2 occasions, according to a story in Newsday tomorrow by myself and reporter Stephanie Saul, on 2 occasions, the federal and state government had enough difficulty in collecting taxes from Clarence Thomas while he was chairman of the EEOC that they actually had to place a tax lien on him once in 1984, and that was a federal lien, and again in 1986.
What kind of amounts are we talking about, or do you know?
Small amounts. In the first case in 1984, it was for just over $2,000. In the second time, it was for something over $1,000.
And how long? I mean, I'm not quite familiar with the law in this case. How long before the government imposes or slaps a lien against you?
Well, we're told by tax authorities that extensive efforts are made by the IRS and even more by the state of Maryland to collect this money before they actually place a lien. There's 4 or 5 pieces of correspondence from the federal government and anywhere from 3 to 10 pieces of correspondence from or telephone calls from the state of Maryland.
David Gergen, in the overall scheme of things, is that even going to make a ripple now, or has it all now degenerated into this one issue of sexual harassment or simply bad taste in terms of his relationship with women? At least that seems to be the new allegation.
Ted, I think the tax lien story is not going to make a difference here. This story's been kicking around for a while. There have been investigations of it, and frankly, there's a lot of last-minute effort on the part. Everybody knows what's going on now, that the Senate committee staffs are pouring out whatever they can to disparage the character of Clarence Thomas right before these hearings. I do think that this sexual harassment question is front and center, and the fact that a second woman has come forward tonight does present new dangers for Clarence Thomas. Her charges in and of themselves do not strike me as terribly serious, and there are all sorts of questions about both their veracity and the context in which a lot of this may or may not have occurred. But it may add in the public mind to the weight of Anita Hill's testimony. And it's really the Anita Hill versus Clarence Thomas controversy now that I think is at the core of this confirmation process.
Ted,
go ahead.
I think that's certainly true, but I'd like to quarrel with one of the characterizations there. The Anita Hill story, Newsday was working on that story as long ago as last July, and to characterize it as a last-minute attempt by certain senators is a little bit unfair to that story, I think. And
when you say, Tim, that you were working on it as long ago as last July, you didn't break the story last July. You didn't even give any public allusion to that story last July. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
So when David says that he refers to what seemed like late-minute leaks or last-minute leaks by staffers up on the Hill, is it fair to say that information that has been coming out in the last few days has enabled you to complete that story and go to press with something that you would not otherwise have been able to go to press with?
It's true. We got additional information in the last few days, but I wouldn't assume it came from any one place. Also, on the tax story, there was no leak. That information is available in county government records. It didn't come from the Senate or any other politician.
So why, I mean, I'm not questioning your credibility in any way. I'm simply questioning, as David just did, the timing here. And indeed, folks around the country are saying, with regard to all of these stories, isn't it strange that all these stories are breaking just now?
Well, I think the reason is that Clarence Thomas's character has become an issue here. When Senator Biden closed the hearings last month, he said the opposite, that his record or his beliefs were the issue. Since then, I think the American public has made it clear to the Senate that they consider a man's or a woman's character to be very important when you're nominated to the Supreme Court.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, David Gergen, I'd like to take up with you this issue of what are being referred to by Clarence Thomas's defenders as all these late leaks by sleazy people and so on. We'll talk about that when we come back in just a moment.
If the world's auto manufacturers were only allowed to build one car to satisfy the needs of all car buyers everywhere, the Toyota Camry would be the logical choice. Motor Trend, 1987. Even before this quote was written, Toyota was at work designing an even better Camry. Introducing the all-new 1992 Toyota Camry. Roomier, quieter, more powerful, safer, and even more beautiful. We just couldn't leave well enough alone.
I'm alive, Jeff Hashimoto.
I'm alive, Rhonda Williamson.
I'm alive, Sonia Schofield.
I'm alive, Howard Weber.
Want to get more out of life?
I'm alive, Jessica Weber.
Get airbags. See your Allstate agent for a list of cars with airbags.
We're alive.
Portland Antique Company's biggest sale of the year. Everything on sale in 2 huge buildings, 20 to 60% off. Over 200 closets, 20 to 60% off. Tables and chairs, 20 to 60% off. Everything on sale starting this Saturday at 10 a.m. Don't miss this spectacular sale. We're open extra hours, 10 to 8 every day. Portland Antique Company at the corners of 12th and 13th on Northwest Gleason.
On my days off, I love taking care of my yard. I also enjoy taking care of my customers at Armstrong Buick Volkswagen in Gladstone. Both things are kind of alike. You see, we decided a while ago if we wanted our dealership to grow, we had to plant the right kind of seeds. So we brought people in with our year-round low prices. Good service keeps them coming back, and word-of-mouth advertising has really helped us grow. Come on in and see us at Armstrong Buick Volkswagen in Gladstone.
Perhaps you're losing a little money on annual credit card fees. Perhaps you should use the card that charges no annual fee. And keep your money where it belongs. It pays to discover. When you receive your pre-approved Discover Card application, sign it.
Oh, thank you.
Because you can't earn cash back until you get it back. It pays to discover.
Can
Can you be fired for who you sleep with? This restaurant chain fired any employee they even thought was gay, and it's legal.
On 2020 Friday.
Tomorrow, health information for today's woman, options in preventing osteoporosis.
Also, TV's Chris Burke and John Lithgow will join us on Good Morning America tomorrow.
Let me just begin with warn our affiliates that because of these late-breaking developments and our effort to bring them to you in full, we're going to run about 2 or 3 minutes over tonight. David Gergen, let us discuss for a moment the charge that is made, particularly by defenders of Clarence Thomas, that all of these developments are coming late. For example, Angela Wright, and let's just put up a picture of this woman, is quoted in the Charlotte Observer tonight as having said one reason that she came forward with all of this information now was that she felt very sorry for Professor Hill when she saw her on television. Here's another quote from her. "I don't know why he showed up." She's referring to the time that he showed up at her apartment uninvited. "This was not appropriate behavior. I pushed it in the back of my mind and moved on." Then she said, "His comments were certainly unwelcome and inappropriate, but I never felt any threat from him. I just felt that he got a certain amount of pleasure out of saying certain things to women." Now, here is someone who quite clearly is not charging him with sexual harassment, but is coming forward now, or is saying these things now to say, when I see what Professor Hill has said, that strikes a certain resonant chord, and I can see this man saying those kinds of things. What's wrong with that?
Well, Ted, the rest of her interview, she says she specifically is not charging him with sexual harassment, that she found the behavior somewhat annoying and offensive.
Yep.
And she also said that she didn't come forward herself. She was called by the Senate committee staff and asked, and then she volunteered this information. What's happened here, and one of the reasons the defenders of Clarence Thomas are so angered, is that there has been a concerted effort on the part of many members on the liberal side, on the staffs, to call everybody they can find. In some cases, people in the EEOC apparently have gotten as many as 20 calls asking if they can, about any dirt on Clarence Thomas they can find. They placed ads in alternative newspapers looking for dirt on him. In today's Washington Post, there was a piece, a very, very striking piece by Juan Williams, a black writer, an ardent believer in civil rights, a man who has been perhaps the principal biographer, if one can call him that, of Clarence Thomas over the last 10 years, who repeats how he has gotten repeated calls over the last several weeks asking if he has any dirt, if there's anything on any of his tapes that can stop Clarence Thomas. And he goes on to say that he finds that Clarence Thomas has been turned into a monster, someone he doesn't even recognize anymore, that the man's character has been so disparaged, he's been so ruined in the public eye, that it's very difficult for him. The question for Clarence Thomas is not anymore just can he get on the Supreme Court. How does he get his reputation back? How does a decent man salvage his reputation under these circumstances?
No, you are absolutely right. There clearly is wretched excess on both sides, but in a climate, and I think you will concede the climate is such, that if Professor Hill is called upon, and she did not volunteer to testify, she was called upon to testify. If she is called upon to testify, it is made clear from the very beginning that this woman's reputation is going to be ripped to shreds.
Right.
And in that kind of a context, is it not then necessary to determine once and for all, is this just an isolated case, or are there other women around who will say, yep, that's the kind of Clarence Thomas I knew. I wasn't particularly bothered by it, but I can see him saying and doing that kind of thing.
Sure, I think that's the reason that clearly the opponents of Clarence Thomas wanted to delay these hearings. It's exactly what Senator Danforth was talking about the other day. The fear is how much of this is being whipped up, how much of this is being generated, how much of this is being blown beyond